Hi, and welcome to the Scope and Sequence overview for Grade 3 Math Expressions for the 2019-20 school year. I want to highlight some key features of this document and especially focus on the changes that exist compared to last year. The first page looks the most similar to last year. It gives you an overview of the year. Although I've only released the Cycle 1 detailed version of the document so far, you can see the breakdown for the whole year, like big picture, on this page. Here are the parts of math expressions that you'd be teaching in Cycle 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what is a benchmark cycle? We've been doing cycles for the past 3 years, so hopefully you're familiar with them, but I want to just take a couple of seconds to talk about them because we do still get a lot of questions and confusion. ELA and science and social studies, they do their terms, their quarters differently than we do in math. In math, we felt like it's really important that what is on the benchmark is clear, that you had adequate time to teach it. Because the benchmark window opens on November 12th, we don't want any content to be on the benchmark that would potentially be taught after the 12th. We didn't think that would be fair. So benchmark cycle 1 tells you that you're teaching this content from September 3rd until Friday, November 8th. Then you could start giving your benchmark. Now, you might not give the benchmark on November 12th. Maybe you don't give it until the 25th or the 26th. That's totally fine, but my caution to you is to resist the urge to just keep reviewing and reviewing and reviewing for the benchmark, because if you do that, you'll get behind. This content is intended to be taught by November 8th, so you can give the benchmark and move on. The idea is that even if you haven't given the benchmark yet, you start teaching 213, 214, 215 by November 13th. Obviously, you can use a little wiggle room, use your discretion, but if you want to roughly stay on pace to cover the content by the end of the year and to cover the majority by the PSSA, this is the pacing you should follow. Now, I say the majority by the PSSA because of this line right here. It tells you that if you follow this pacing, no faster, no slower, you will not get to these lessons before the test. All right, next page. This page has the same purpose as it did last year, but the structure, the format looks a little bit different. I think there were 3 columns last year. This year, it's just 2 columns. We have a Pennsylvania column on the left and a Common Core column on the right. Different schools, different networks tend to prefer PA over Common Core, so we're providing both and showing you how they really are aligned to each other very closely. So to give you kind of a little standards overview, in Pennsylvania we have standards. They're in the darker gray color. In Cycle 1 you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different PA core standards that you're covering. Those PA core standards are fairly broad. The language is kind of general to help you say, what does it really mean to represent and solve problems involving multiplication and division? You have eligible content that is kind of a part of that standard. It gives you more detail. So then on the right, we have the Common Core side. The darker gray over here, those are called Common Core clusters. So, for example, we have the 3 OA A cluster. The A cluster, notice, has the exact same words as the Common Core standard over here, which means clusters are fairly broad. To get more detail about a Common Core cluster, you look at Common Core standards. So the A cluster has A1, A2, A3, and so on. Down here you have the B cluster, which has B5, B6. Notice it doesn't start over at B1. A goes up to 4, and then B takes over at 5. It's helpful to see that these are really basically the same. It's all about which lingo you want to use. Are you going to use MO3BO111 or 3OA-A1? The words are almost identical. The other thing that's helpful on this page right here in bold is conceptual, procedural, application. Those words, hopefully, kind of ring a bell for you. Those are the aspects of rigor. Rigor was one of the 3 Common Core shifts, along with focus and coherence. You've maybe heard of the comparison to the 3-legged stool. We want to have a stool that's balanced. No one leg is way longer than another. So we have a conceptual leg, a procedural leg, and an application leg. We don't necessarily need to have all three aspects every single day. It's more about achieving balance over the course of a unit or a year. And when you look at some standards, you'll realize, you know what, this standard right here, it's not procedural. It's not about application. This is a conceptual standard. It's not about knowing my facts quickly and fluently. 308A1 and any lesson that focuses on 308A1 is about interpreting products. What does the 5 represent in 5 times 7? What does the 7 represent? What does the product of 35 represent? This is a conceptual standard. The tasks I choose and the questions I ask should be conceptual. Down here, well, this is application. It's all about real-world problems. It's kind of interesting to look over the course of a cycle for trends. In 3rd grade, I'm noticing a lot of conceptual standards in cycle 1, a ton. My work with multiplication and division is really very conceptual. Here's one procedural one, fluently know my facts. That fluency is only one standard in this huge list. So hopefully that's kind of helpful to focus your thinking. Then we get to the detailed pages. Math Expressions has very large units. In fact, Unit 1 has 19 lessons. To help focus your attention within that unit, Math Expressions breaks it down into big ideas. I've tried to provide kind of a summary of each big idea to show you, hey, when I'm teaching this group of lessons, 115 through 119, here's my focus. The hope is that that can give you kind of some direction and kind of chunk your time. So you're not thinking about 19 lessons at a time, but you're also not just thinking about one lesson at a time. You're kind of thinking in chunks. Just like last year, the dates are over on the left. They provide a range and they give you flex days. This is the dates for this big idea. Flex days can be used in various ways. Honestly, it might be because you're sick or you have a field trip. But ideally, it's because maybe lesson 115 is a really long, challenging lesson and you want to split it into 2 days. Or maybe you want to do a pre-teach topic before a lesson. This is your chance to be strategic and responsive to students' needs. Another difference from last year is that last year, for each lesson, I only had one objective. That was it. That was all the information you got. This year, I wanted to break it down by activity. Math Expressions lessons sometimes have 2 or 3 or even 4 activities. And those activities may be very similar to each other, but they also may be very unique and different. I wanted, through this scope and sequence, to try to summarize and convey to you what the purpose of each activity is with an objective. So in bold, you'll see the objective. So students would be able to explore patterns while multiplying and dividing by 0. That's the objective for activity 3. These words here, non-bold, are my attempt to kind of give you some added tips or strategies or information to help as you're teaching those activities. Over here on the right, you'll see the eligible content that is aligned to that lesson. These eligible content do not necessarily come straight from the textbook. You may be aware, probably are, that Math Expressions tends to say each lesson is aligned to like 4, 5, or even 6 standards. And it's true, their lessons tend to integrate a lot of content. My fear was if I listed all those standards over here like I did last year, that doesn't really help you to focus your instruction. When I'm teaching lesson 115, what is my main focus? I tried to identify the 1 or 2 eligible content that are most targeted by any given lesson. If you look in your textbook, you'll see even more that you can touch on, but my suggestion is that this is the focus for you. As you scroll down at the very end of the unit, you'll see just some overview notes, and you'll start the next unit. And then we come to the benchmark window. And that's it. only Cycle 1 has been released so far because all of these notes and details and the time to figure out exactly what standards are most aligned just took all my time. I couldn't get beyond Cycle 1, but I hope this overview was helpful. I hope these details are helpful, and I hope that you have a wonderful Cycle 1. Welcome back from the summer and good luck.